Understanding the Script Supervisor's Daily Report, or sometimes called the Daily Wrap Report, or the Daily Report, or the Daily Progress Report. No matter what they call it, it's still the same report. It's the report that you turn in at the end of the day that tells you everything that happened that day. So I promise you by the end of this video, you're going to know the difference between a good report and a not so good report. So let's do this. Okay, so I'm going to be breaking down this report into 3 sections just to make it a little easier to digest because there's a lot of elements to this report. Then I'm going to be walking you through some reports that I downloaded from the internet and point out a few things that are missing and why I feel that it's important to have. And if you want to see some more samples, just Google Script Supervisor Daily Report and it'll bring up a whole slew of them. It's not that they're bad reports, it just depends on what matters most for that specific job. Then at the end, I'm going to show you a sample of a report I used that when I first started script supervising and what it evolved to as time went on and why I changed it. And if you want a copy of this report, just click on the link in the comments below. Okay, so this first section is going to include the title, meaning the title of that form, meaning the Script Supervisor's Daily Report or whatever you're going to call it, production information, the job information, the call times, the day and date, the names, and day of photography. Now, what I mean by names is the director's name, the UPM's name, the director of photography's name. Those are optional. So those, anything I put in green are going to be optional. Okay, so section 2 has a lot of information. Now, here we're going to have the scene totals, the added and omitted scenes, the page totals, the setup count, the time, including the actual running time, ART, or the estimated running time, ERT, camera rolls, sound rolls, retakes, wild tracks, and production notes. Now, the reason ERT, or the estimated running time, is in green is that you may or may not put the estimated time in there because if they didn't ask for a timing of that particular script, whether it's episodic or a feature, then you're not going to include it. Okay, so that may or may not be there. Okay, and finally, the third section is what was and wasn't shot that day. Now, I have a separate section for this. In some of these reports, this is actually intermingled in section 2. So this is what I mean by some of these reports, it has the same information, but it's kind of like intermixed with other sections on the report. But let me show you what I mean by this by some examples of some other reports. Okay, so here's our first example, and just keep in mind anything in yellow are things that I feel are important to have on the report. Anything in green is optional, and then anything in red I feel are elements that should be on the report but are not on on this particular report. Okay, so let's take the first section. Names are in green. So we have the director's name, first AD, UPM, and script supervisor's name. Again, it's fine to have them on there. It's not necessary to have them on there. I personally have the director and the DP's name on my reports because I just like the way it looks. And but it's not necessary. Okay, and then the location and weather, not to say that those things are not necessary or important. I just put those things on my production notes because I live in California and the weather rarely changes, and I just don't feel that I need to have a dedicated line for the weather. But if it does change drastically, I will put it in the notes. Day is in red because they don't have the day of the week here. So they do have the date, but not the day of the week. Now, when you're working these kind of hours, putting down the day, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, is important because, again, the days start running together after a while, and they'll even have it on the call sheet. Now, let's look at the section 2. Retakes are not on there, or sometimes called reshoots. I think that's important to have a line for that. Not that you're going to have many, but it's good to have a dedicated line for the editor in case there is a reshoot. You can put that on there so that they know whether there was a reshoot that day or not, or retake. Tone is in green because if you notice it says wild tracks/tone, that means room tone. Anything that has to do with wild tracks or the sound will be on the wild track section. So I don't necessarily put tone on there. You can put it on there. That's okay too. The last section, the one thing I see here that is not on here, added and omitted scenes. Now that's important because when you're doing totals, if they add a scene, it's going to add page count as well. So you have to adjust the totals for that, and you have to be able to see how many scenes you added that day, how many pages you added that day, and what is the revised totals. And it doesn't have it on here, so it's important to have. Most likely, this particular person is making those additions in the notes section, but when you have a dedicated line, it just makes it more clear. Also, it doesn't have the scene number shot or not shot that day. When you get the call sheet, you're going to have a list of scenes you're going to do that day. And the production office wants to know, did you finish everything today? Even though you wrote down there what scenes you shot today, they also want to know what you didn't shoot. So you want to make that note as well. And most likely, this person is probably making those notes in the notes. But if you have a section for that, it just makes it clearer. Okay, now in this sample, we do have a title, which is the daily progress report, but it doesn't have any production information or job information. So, say an editor was working on this and he was working on, say, a couple of different jobs for this production company. It's gonna be confusing for him what this report is referring to, what job it's referring to. That's why it's very important to make sure you put down the production information and the job information, so it's very clear to them what this report, pertains to. It also doesn't have the day of the week. It has the date, but not the day of the week. I think that's important. It has names, director and producer, which is okay, that's fine. It does not have the day of photography, so that's on the call sheet, and I always feel that it's important to put it on the report as well. Now, the second section there, I haven't read retakes, wild tracks, camera rolls, and sound rolls. I believe this particular person is meant to put those uh, details or elements in the media notes, I believe. It just says media notes, and I'm assuming that they're talking about the camera rolls and the sound rolls, wild tracks or retakes. It's important to put those on dedicated lines. And in this particular report, it's very easy to add the lines. There's a lot of wasted space there, I feel. So like I said, it's just clearer if you have it listed there. Also, this particular one does not have production notes, but it has remarks. So that's what they mean by they'll call it different things, either production notes or remarks or you know they'll call it, but just a place where they can put notes to the production office. Also, it has scenes covered, and that's probably where they can put the scenes that weren't covered as well. So again, it just seems like it's just space that could have been utilized a little bit better. Okay, so here's another sample. And the first thing that I see first off is camera rolls is not on this one. That's very important because you need to know what camera rolls were shot that day, not only sound rolls, but camera rolls. The other thing it doesn't have on here is the added or omitted scenes. Now, that's a very easy fix for this. All you have to do is add another couple lines in on the scene totals shot today and, below that and put down a line for added scenes or omitted scenes. That way you can have a running total of what, you have in the script up to that point because say you start out with 20 scenes and then they omitted a scene, so now your new scene total is going to be 19 and that's what you're going to be deducting from your uh, totals to date. So that's important to have on there. Otherwise, you're having to explain all of that in the notes section there. It looks like it has a large note section, but when you can just put a line there, it's a lot easier to read and understand. Okay, and in this example, just kind of like the other one, where it does have a title, but it has no production information line or job information or day of photography. So again, if a editor is working on, several projects, he's going to get confused as to what this progress report is pertaining to. So make it clear to them what is the production information, what is the job information. It has everything else on there, which is fine. I just feel that there's a lot of wasted space and it could be laid out just a little differently, and just make it a little more appealing to the eye. I'm just a very visual person, so um, I just feel that it can be the space can be utilized a little better. Okay, so let's look at a couple of my forms. Now, this was my old form. This one I used for many years when first started script supervising. And as you can see, for me, it's very clear. You have, your production information in the first section, and then you have your setups and goes down the line. As went on, I realized that there was some information that, you know what, I don't have to write down every single setup number there. So all I really need to write down is how the count of how many how many setups I have. And then as you look at the boxes down there, it was a little confusing sometimes. I needed to put down the scene numbers, omitted and added, and also page count omitted and added. But then I was having to, recalculate and do all this math off to the side. And it was just it was I again, I it worked for many years and it was fine, it was great, but then after I saw other script supervisors' forms, I realized, "You know what? I'm gonna improve on mine much better." So, the one thing I didn't have on here, it was the scenes not shot, but that I would put in the reasons for delay or remarks, which is basically the production notes, and I would put it there, but let me show you the report that I evolved to. Okay, so this is my new and improved report. So as you can see, there's looks like a lot of information, but it's very clear to me. You have it in sections, and and I'm going to take each section so you can see my thought in how I created my report so that when you create your report, you can either take parts of this or, if you think it's too much or whatever, you can basically, create your report around it. But let me take it in sections so you know exactly what I'm talking about. Okay, so let's just section this off a little bit. So here, the first section is you're going to have your basic information, for, production company title. I put the director's name and director of photography. You don't have to. I do because I kind of like the way it looks. Day of photography, day of the week, and the date. And then you have, of course, your call times. Okay, so here's our section two. And as you can see, I added the lines, the added and omitted lines. And so it's a lot easier to calculate this way. So let's look at the next slide where I actually populated some of these boxes so that you could see more clearly what it looks like. Okay, so here's our first day of shooting. Now, first thing you're going to do is you're going to put the total scenes in the script and the total pages in the script at the very top there. We haven't added any scenes, we haven't omitted any scenes yet, and so we're just going to carry those totals down to the current total. Now, of course, we don't have anything previously shot because it's the first day of shooting. So now it's the end of the first day, and we're going to add in there all of what we've done today. So we've shot 6 scenes, we've shot 2 pages, 18 setups, and our actual running time is 6 minutes and 16 seconds. Now, to date, we're going to just bring those numbers down because we don't have any previously shot to add. So we're just going to move those numbers down, and then we're going to subtract those numbers, the scenes and the pages, from the current total. So 6 from 194 is 188, and 2 from 119 and 5/8 is 117 and 5/8. So those are our new totals. Now let's look at our day two. Okay, so now we're in the second day of shooting. So what we're going to do is we're going to put our same totals in the script at the top there. But look what's different now. We added a scene, and so since we added a scene, we have to add the page count as well. So we added one scene and 1 1/8 pages to the total. So our current total now changes from 194 to 195. And then we added the 1 1/8 pages to the pages as well. So then we're going to add in the shots previously, which was 6/2/18 and 6/18. Now we're going to put in today's numbers, which is we're going to put that we shot 8 scenes today and 4 4/8 pages, 27 setups, and 5 minutes and 12 seconds were shot today. We're going to add those together, which gives us our total to date. Then again, we're going to subtract the 14 total to date scenes from the current 195, new current 195, which gives us 181. And same thing with the pages. We've got 6 and 4/8 pages total to date, and we're going to subtract those from the current total, and that gives us 114 pages and 2/8 and 2/8. Okay, and if you notice in the camera rolls, we only had 2 A rolls today. Yesterday we had 2 A rolls and 2 B rolls. And today we have 2 A rolls and 1 B roll. So yesterday we shot A roll 1 and 2, and today we shot A roll 3 and 4, and only shot B3 today. And of course, sound rolls 3 and 4. And then we come to our last section now. Like I said, a lot of the reports don't have this. I put this on here because I found that I was doing my calculations on a separate piece of paper. And this way, if I have it all on one sheet, I can basically look back to whatever day I was working on and see how much page count I credited. Because sometimes the page count, if you're only crediting part of it, you can see it here on how much you actually credited, and it's all on one sheet. And this is also where I put what scenes we shot or didn't shoot. So, for example, scene 3 here, I put a check mark that we did not shoot that scene this day. And also, just so you notice, I put my name and phone number and email address at the bottom of all my forms, because you always want the editor or whoever has a question about your form, uh, give them a way to contact you. So this is why I don't put, Script Supervisor at the top. I always just put it all on my forms. It's just already populated in there, so I don't have to, worry about it. Okay, so that's the Script Supervisor's daily report. Now, I would encourage you to create your own report in an Excel sheet so that you can change it as you change your jobs. For example, make it more efficient for you to populate the production company name and the job title in each of your forms so that you don't have to write it in every single time. And let me know in the comments what report made more sense to you and which one you would prefer to use and why. So now for your homework. Okay, if you haven't seen this video, watch it to learn all about the forms a Script Supervisor uses, and this one for shot sizes because you're going to need it for when we go over the daily log next time we meet. Okay, so that's it for now. Do your homework.